What's happening, guys? We're back with you. It's Matt and Ryan back together again, BFFs. Happy to be back on with you. I had a lot of fun making the video yesterday. It is Saturday evening right now. We're coming on here to make the Sunday slate. I know you've got to get somewhere in like a half hour latest, so we're going to try to get through this. Shouldn't take us too long, though. Only 3 games.
Not at all. Let's jump right in.
All right, sweet. Let me screen share this, and we'll get to it. Feel like it's a better slate tomorrow than today's was.
I agree. I'm just loaded up on the Raiders Bengals right now and making the game interesting at the very least.
Yeah, did the Raiders just score?
Field goal. So we got quarterbacks, and I looked through this slate for a while. I mean, there's some arguments to be made for obviously most of the guys on the slate, but for me, I'm either going Patrick Mahomes or Jalen Hurts. If I can get to Mahomes, I think that's the right answer. And if I absolutely want to be a little bit more contrarian in GPPs, Jalen Hurts runs with the football, and we know it's a struggle to run in Tampa Bay.
Yeah, I get that. What about Tom Brady?
Tom Brady's always in play. If I'm getting up that far, I'm getting to Patrick Mahomes. But am I shocked if Brady's the leading scorer in the day? Of course not. If he had more weapons, I'd be more interested.
That's what I was going to say too, and that's my biggest problem. The weapons just aren't there right now, so that's my biggest issue with Brady. I think Mahomes is the clear answer. I don't think that you're wrong to like Hurts in tournaments or Prescott or even Jimmy G, depending on what you think happens in that game. But on paper, I do think Mahomes is the clear guy.
Yeah, and my problem with the whole Cowboys 49ers game is I think they're going to be able to run the ball in Dallas. And very similar to what you thought about the Bills Patriots game. I just don't know how many possessions are going to be in that one. I think San Francisco has the ability to control the clock. I'm not overly interested in that game for offense with the exception of Mitchell. Maybe Debo.
Yeah, Debo also, I was going to say. And then I think that you can potentially look at the Dallas weapons because they're going to need to be throwing. But your point about that game potentially playing slower is valid. On the same token, though, there's only 3 games.
Exactly. So those are my quarterbacks. Anybody you're interested in outside of Mahomes?
I mean, Brady, because I don't think Philly's the worst team on this slate. Well, Philly and Pittsburgh are the 2 worst teams on this slate. But the lack of weapons, I kind of see Tampa winning this game, but in more of a blah fashion than anything.
Okay. Let's switch on over to running backs. Just keep it moving along. I thought running back was pretty clear on this one for where I'm going to go. I'm going to use Mitchell. I think he's likely to get a bunch of carries. Will Debo get some of the carries inside the 10? Yeah, that's possible. It's definitely possible. It looks like Darrell Williams is going to play with Clyde Edwards-Helaire out, so those were the 2 guys that I was most likely to lean on. And then I want to get some clarification on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. If we can hear anything on what they expect to do, obviously no Ronald Jones, no Leonard Fournette. If it's Keyshawn Vaughn out there starting, and it looks like he's got the job, then I'd feel better about that. But Gio Bernard is back this week too.
Interesting. Yeah, I think that the Chiefs guy, like Darrell Williams, is a lock. Hold on, I got to see.
Yeah. Assuming that he plays, which he's listed as questionable on here, he's going to play. He's definitely a lock for me at running back. And then the other guy for me is Mitchell. Like, I know I'll play those 2. Like, I just don't trust Najee Harris to be overly involved in this game, by the second quarter.
The only thing I'll say to that is, like, he plays every snap. So
sure.
He's gonna play, and they're going to dump down. Like, it just depends on how close you think Pittsburgh can keep this game.
I don't trust him to keep it super close. So I don't think he's like the worst play because he could easily have 5, 6, 7 receptions. I just don't think I get there.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, it makes a lot of sense. I don't think he's like a lock. I just think he's in play in tournaments as most everyone is on the slate because it's only 3 games. Seems like you like the San Fran side a lot more than the Dallas side here.
Well, I like Mitchell. That's about it. I kind of think it's going to be a boring game. I think San Francisco is going to try to run the ball, limit the possessions. Is it possible that, the game works out differently? Of course. Of course it's going to be different, but I kind of think San Francisco controls the clock in this one, and it's not a very interesting game.
I get that, man. I mean, I get that. That seems to be kind of the general consensus right now, given how these teams have looked lately. I do think that both these teams are good, and it's going to be a good game. I'm not sure how this game is going to play out. I wouldn't be surprised that a very low-scoring game with, both teams running a lot. I wouldn't be surprised if, if the 49ers hit on a couple big running plays. Dallas counters that with some big passing plays.
Maybe. We can see. I don't trust Mike McCarthy. I'll tell you that much.
Well, yeah, nor should you.
Nor should anybody.
Yeah. All right. Wide receiver. Man, I know that I don't like this team that much, but a guy that I've just been in I know we haven't made an NFL video in a while, but I've been on basically every week. I see no reason not to be on him here is Deante Johnson.
Agreed. He's going to be in my lineup because I know that they're going to have to throw.
Yeah, and he's the guy. Ben, and as shitty as Ben is, like Deante Johnson's his guy, and they have really good rapport. I'm just a big fan, especially at that price point. And the other guy, honestly, I like a lot is Mike Evans.
Yep. Again, he's the only wide receiver, right?
And he's good. So
Yep.
I'm not worried about him. You know, a lot of times we talk about guys being the number one. Like, he's been the number one for a long time. And there were multiple times where he didn't have a guy next to him and he was still putting up numbers with Jameis Winston. So I'm confident in him here.
And like, I like Debo. I like Tyreek Hill, but the little bit of cap savings right there does help. And the problem with Tyreek Hill for me is got a lot of games where he doesn't participate a ton. You know, they take him out of the game. He just doesn't need to do a ton. He's got monster game potential every time he walks out there, but you can only play a few wide receivers. I like the consistency of a Deante Johnson. I think Mike Evans is more needed than ever. So those are two of my spots right there.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I mean, Tyreek Hill, more inconsistent than ever, it seems like. The upside's obviously still there, but he's had more down games, like real floor games, than in any other point, I feel like, this year. Has been dealing with injuries. I'm not overly excited about spending up on him. Debo, I like a lot. If I can get there, I will. I mentioned the Dallas guys in tournaments. And after that, is there any like cheap guy you like here?
Juju, 3K.
Oh, Juju, forgot about him.
Yep, Juju, 3K. In it to win it, right? Like maybe if this was a regular season game, you'd think they'd be easing him back in, but Benton's last game, give me some Juju.
Yeah, I agree. I actually agree with that. I mean,
I wouldn't be playing him at 5K, but at the minimum, yeah, give me Juju in a game where they might have to throw 50 times.
Yeah, and you just don't need that much at 3K.
No, you don't. So he's in play. I don't think he's a must, though. Like, I don't think he's going to blow up or anything.
No, I don't think he's a must either, because the one thing that, even though he's cheap, he takes up a valuable roster spot.
Yep, and then the guy from Philly, Devontae Smith, I think he's wildly in play. You know darn well that Philadelphia is going to have to throw the ball maybe a little bit more than they're comfortable with because Tampa Bay stops the run very well, as probably everybody listening to this video already knows.
Yeah, and I'll say the other guy is Cedric Wilson, who really seems to have good rapport with Dak Prescott. No Michael Gallup. He's looked good.
Sure, that makes a lot of sense as well.
And he's cheap.
Then you throw in all the cheap Tampa Bay guys. Also, Scotty Miller made his appearance last week. Tyler Johnson, you know, he seems to have a thing with Tom Brady a little bit. You got Perryman at 4,600. You can't play everybody, though, I know you've said this once or twice in our lives. So I think, like, I'm starting with Deante Johnson. I'm probably taking Mike Evans over Tyreek Hill this week, which he doesn't have the upside Tyreek Hill does, but I know he is needed. And I don't know that Tyreek Hill is going to be needed because they may not be throwing come second half that much.
So true, so true. All right, let's move on to tight end.
I think tight end is loaded.
Yeah, it is loaded. I mean, there is no – every team here has a really good tight end.
Like, you can legit – like, I think Kelsey's going to be the most popular, and he's not my favorite tight end. I like Gronk in a game where he is really needed. Gronk and Evans are the two guys, you know, Brady feels really comfortable with. They're not going to be able to lean on the running game more than likely. So I think Gronk and Evans both have double-digit targets, so I'm very interested. And then the flip side of it, how can you not be interested in Goddard at 4,400, knowing that Philly's going to have to throw?
I think Goddard's my guy. And I think you kind of made the point of why I like Brady in that I like Evans and Gronk. And when you like two of the weapons, it only makes sense at a quarterback you think at least plays well. Doesn't mean you think that, yeah, he's going to be the best quarterback on the slate, because I do agree with you. I think Gronk and Evans more or less just get peppered with targets. So I'm with that. Gronk and Goddard are my favorite tight ends.
I love your boy Freiermuth as a pivot off Goddard.
So do I. And, I mean, I could never fault anyone for playing Kelsey.
No, I could never fault anybody for playing Kelsey or Kittle or Schultz, who's been fantastic. But gun to head, I'm making one lineup. I may be doubling up on the tight ends in the Philly-Tampa Bay game, especially if I check back on the weather tomorrow. It's not a big deal. It sounds like it's possibly iffy, but probably won't be anything major.
And the one thing I'll say, and, you know, we talk about this in NBA with blowouts, like, sure, like, who knows how much Kansas City's going to need to be throwing late, but that means they scored a lot early. And I bet Kelsey, you know, is involved at least, you know.
Yep, and then it's that classic thing. Do you pick between Kelsey and Hill? Do you play them both? Do you fade them both and just hope they don't, you know, Both
I,
go off. It's always a tough one with those
I
guys.
definitely don't think it's rare. I definitely don't think you have to have exposure to either.
You don't have to have what?
Exposure to either. Like, you don't have to choose between one of them.
No, I don't think so either. So, tight end is loaded. I'm probably rolling Goddard,
Ooh,
Gronkowski, but I can make legit arguments for Kelsey, Kittle, Schultz. And I think Freiermuth is a really intriguing pivot for a Pittsburgh team that's going to have to throw a lot.
here's my question to you then. If you like Mahomes as your favorite QB, which makes sense, doesn't sound like you're going to pair him with any of his weapons.
I've always found, unless you're going for like, I need to get to the top of a tournament. And even then, I always find the pairing of a wide receiver and a quarterback to be less of a necessity than some people make it out to be. Just because you like a quarterback, you don't have to successfully guess who he throws his touchdowns to.
That's fair enough. I mean, I get that. I see why the correlation just makes a lot more sense because, you just need so many more things to happen when you don't have a QB with your receivers. Like, you need, the receivers you use to be really good, but you need the quarterback to not be very good, et cetera,
Last up, defense. I think gun to head, I would go Chiefs defense.
Yeah, Chiefs D look good here. So do the Bucks. The Bucks look good. I think the Bucks and Chiefs are the two definite top Ds, and then in tournaments, any D is in play.
Definitely. For me, for the Chiefs, the big thing here is Big Ben he's not very good, and I expect that Kansas City is going to score. Kansas City plays well in the first quarter. Pittsburgh plays terrible in the first half all season long. This has been kind of the mantra behind these two teams, which then puts a situation where Big Ben is, in my mind, down a couple touchdowns and throwing a ton. Recipe for disaster.
Yeah, definitely recipe for disaster for sure. I will say though, like, based on what you think, and I'm just going to throw this out there, like on the Dallas San Fran game playing slow, Philly, Tampa. I don't think that game's going to have like a ton of points. I don't think Big Ben is crazy at QB.
No, just
We
volume
like
alone, right?
weapons.
Volume alone.
Think about it. Yeah, and that's all that matters. Even if he throws a pick six, that means nothing. That's better for him because they're scoring points and he's back on the field. We liked Juju. We obviously like Deante a lot. We like Freiermuth. That's three weapons. And if you use those guys, you can basically spend up on whoever you want. And that's where I would use like a Hill and Kelsey because you're thinking that the Steelers, score with them a little bit.
Sure. Like if you wanted to do a Big Ben, Juju, Freiermuth stack, which is really cheap, now you can get Tyreek Hill and Kelsey. Like if you think that game just goes off and it's, Kansas City wins 38-27 with, Pittsburgh throwing up a ton of garbage points at the end of the game, that would be monstrous.
Yeah, especially because Darrell Williams is so cheap too.
Sure. Throw them all in there. And maybe that's just the game that blows up because I could definitely see Tampa Bay winning this game 20-13, really boring, nothing too special. And then San Fran, beating Dallas in a game where they just control the clock and it's kind of a snooze fest.
Yeah, so in this case, you probably wouldn't want like the Chiefs D, but if you went the Bucks D, you still have money to spend here. Honestly, you could freaking go Mahomes in this type of build and still get, boy Mitchell.
I also don't, if you're looking for different defenses, like I don't hate San Francisco's defense in the slightest if you operate under the assumption they play well. This is a team with 3 or more sacks in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 straight games, multiple sacks in 10 of 11. They get after the pass rusher. I don't trust Mike McCarthy to call a good game, and I don't think Dak is that good if he's behind 14 points.
I agree with all those points. On the flip side, I could also make a case for the Cowboys D, just
absolutely.
They've been the most what's the word I'm looking for? Opportunistic defense all year, as evidenced by their averaging of 11 DK points per game, more than anyone else on the slate. And if they get in front and Jimmy G's forced to throw, they're in a good spot.
The correlation will make sense to all the football fans out there, but the fact that Diggs is like leading the NFL in interceptions for like a high for like a long time, but also leads the league in passing yards against, that says a lot about who the Cowboys are, right? Like you can get after them and then they're going to take the chances, like you just said. So they could give up 24 and still get you 14 DK points.
Easily. I'm with that 100%.
So it's a wild year for Diggs, right? Like to be the most picked on cornerback in the NFL, but also lead the NFL in interceptions like that.
Yeah, it's crazy when you hear people talking about, like on Twitter or whatever, the spectrum of some people think he's, the defensive player of the year, and other people think he's straight trash.
Yep. And it's probably somewhere in the middle. He probably needs a little bit more coaching.
It's definitely in the middle. I mean, he was a high draft pick. Like, he's definitely not trash. He's certainly not the defensive player of the year. I mean, interceptions are random, but they're only random to a certain point. Like, it's not, not everyone, if everyone could do it, everyone would do it. That said, like, he's certainly not the defensive player of the year.
Oh, God, no. I think what he is, he's like a brand new DFS player trying to win tournaments who swings for the fences on every single pick and doesn't take any safe plays at all. And he hits on a couple of them. And you're like, oh, that was awesome. The problem is then he has got like 4 people with less than 4 points because he swung for the fences on everybody.
Amen to that. I know all about that.
Yep. So I got to get flying. It was good to talk to you, my man. It was good to see all you guys out there. Well, not see you. It was good to talk to everybody out there. We'll be talking more NFL football the next couple of weeks. And I've gotten more questions the last 2 days than I had in a while. I'm still around, just in a lesser fashion. Obviously when the pandemic happened, we took a huge hit to how many, paying customers we had. So one of us had to go out and work outside so that we could keep everything rolling and stuff like that. So still around, but we just wanted to shift it to more manageable for one person.
Yes, sir. And I was going to say, we hadn't even talked about it yet, but there's a Monday night game. Maybe we can get on here and make a showdown video for that.
I'd be interested.
Sweet. Thanks, guys.